Police refuse to help black teen, standing on the corner of a busy city street, trying to stay calm and composed. He approaches a group of officers who seem too absorbed in their conversation to acknowledge him. He clears his throat softly, then speaks with a polite but firm voice. "Excuse me, officers, I need some help. My bag was taken, and I'm trying to find it." The officers glance at him briefly, not enough to engage, and continue their chat. One officer rolls his eyes as if bothered by the interruption. The teen takes a deep breath, trying to keep his composure. "It's really important. I just need help finding it," he insists, his voice now slightly more urgent. But the officers are uninterested. They start muttering among themselves, paying him no more attention than if he were a passing stranger. The teen stands there, trying not to let his frustration show, but the dismissiveness cuts deeper than he imagined. What happens when the police refuse to help the wrong person? He waits, hoping for a change, but nothing happens. The officers' laughter fills the air as they brush him off. He tries to explain again, this time with a little more emotion creeping into his voice. "Please, I'm not causing trouble. I just need your help." The tension builds as the officers continue to ignore him, their dismissive attitude growing more evident. As the teen stands there, watching the bystanders begin to notice the awkwardness of the situation, his anger starts to build. Not at the officers, but at the situation itself. You won't believe how this situation changes when his mother, the mayor, arrives. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. The black teen, standing in front of the officers, has a calm demeanor that contrasts sharply with the tense situation. Despite being dismissed and ignored by the police, he remains composed. His posture is straight, and his voice steady, even though inside he's feeling the weight of the injustice unfolding before him. The teen is no stranger to adversity, but this moment tests his patience. He knows he has done nothing wrong, and yet the officers treat him as if he's a troublemaker, someone not worth acknowledging. His clothing is neat, and he carries himself respectfully. Yet the officers continue to belittle him. They don't listen to his pleas, and instead, their assumptions about him, based purely on his race, guide their actions. He tries to reason with them, explaining his situation calmly, but it's clear that the officers aren't interested in hearing his side. The officers, on the other hand, are rude and dismissive. They stand tall in their uniforms, using their power to intimidate. They speak to him as if he doesn't matter, as if his words hold no weight. Every attempt the teen makes to explain himself is met with mockery. They ignore his concerns, falsely judging him based on his appearance. In their minds, he's just another ordinary young black man, and in their eyes, that means he's deserving of their disrespect. As they continue to talk over him, the teen stands there, his frustration growing. His mother's identity is still a mystery, and the story of who he truly is remains untold. But in that moment, it's clear that something important is about to happen. The officers' biased assumptions cloud their judgment, and the teen's patience is beginning to wear thin. What they don't know is that he is not the person they think he is, and his mother's identity will soon make all the difference. The officers exchange a quick glance before turning their attention to him. The taller officer speaks first, his voice sharp and condescending. "Hey, what's your business here?" he asks, his eyes scanning the teen's face as though looking for something to accuse him of. The teen freezes for a moment. He didn't expect this. He wasn't doing anything wrong. "I'm just walking through," he says politely, keeping his tone even, hoping the officers will see there's no reason to be stopped. But the officers aren't listening. The shorter officer, with a sneer on his face, steps forward. "Walking through? In this part of town," he says with clear disbelief. His words drip with judgment. "What are you really doing here?" The teen's calm expression never falters, but inside, frustration begins to build. He had hoped the interaction would be brief. After all, he had done nothing wrong. He's just a young man trying to get on with his day, but now he's being questioned, as if he's doing something suspicious. He tries to explain again, his voice still composed. "I'm just trying to get to the corner. I'm not bothering anyone." The officers exchange glances, but instead of letting the situation go, they dig deeper. "You don't look like you belong here," the taller officer says, now openly scanning him up and down, as though trying to find fault in his every movement. A lump forms in the teen's throat, but he stays calm. He knows arguing will only make things worse. "I don't understand what you're implying," he says carefully. "I'm just walking to the store. There's nothing suspicious about that." But the officers continue to dismiss his explanations, growing more aggressive with each word. They start accusing him of loitering, even though he's clearly just passing through. "You think you can just walk around here, making people uncomfortable?" the shorter officer demands. The teen can feel the tension rising. More people are starting to notice the interaction, some stopping to watch, others pulling out their phones to record. The officers, however, seem to feed off the attention. They want to assert their power, to show that they're in control. As they continue questioning him, he tries to maintain his composure. But it's becoming increasingly clear that the officers are acting based on their own assumptions, fueled by prejudice and their quick judgment of him. The more they press, the more they ignore his attempts to reason. Every word from them feels like a slap in the face, and it's clear that no matter how much he tries to explain, it's not going to matter. The situation is escalating, and he can feel it. But despite the growing tension and the anger bubbling inside him, he stays calm, holding his ground. He knows that fighting back could make things worse. But it's becoming evident that these officers won't back down. Their actions are becoming more aggressive, and the crowd of onlookers is starting to feel the weight of the injustice unfolding before their eyes. This isn't just a misunderstanding. It's an example of something much deeper: the unfair treatment of black individuals based on assumptions, not actions. The teen knows this, and as much as he wants to speak out, he knows he has to stay composed. But inside, he's boiling. As the situation continues to unfold, the tension in the air grows thicker, and the officers continue to disregard the teen's polite attempts to communicate. The teen, standing tall and composed, is still trying to maintain control, but the officers are relentless. His calm demeanor contrasts sharply with their increasing hostility. "Why don't you just move along?" the taller officer snaps, his tone harsh and condescending. "You've been here for a while now, and I'm sure you've been up to no good." The officer's gaze is dismissive, as if the teen's mere presence is an inconvenience to him. The teen keeps his voice steady, refusing to let the officer's words get under his skin. "I'm not bothering anyone," he explains, his words measured and calm. "I'm just trying to get to where I'm going, and I'm not doing anything wrong." The shorter officer chuckles derisively, his posture a clear show of superiority. "Oh, really? Because you sure look suspicious. What's with the attitude? You think we don't know who you are?" The teen feels the sting of their assumptions, but he doesn't let them see it. His calmness is his shield, and he holds on to it tightly. "I don't think I deserve this treatment. I'm just walking through like anyone else. Please, just let me go." But the officers won't listen. The taller one steps forward, closing the distance between them. His body language is confrontational, and his voice drips with disdain as he speaks. "What? You think you can just walk around here like you own the place? He crosses his arms, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. We don't take kindly to people who act like they're above the law. The teen remains composed, though a flicker of frustration crosses his face. I'm not acting above the law, he says, his voice still calm, but now tinged with frustration. I'm asking you to let me go on my way. As the officer continues his verbal assault, the crowd around them begins to take notice. A few people stop and watch, some of them even pulling out their phones to record the interaction. The sound of their cameras clicking and the soft murmur of the crowd fills the air. But no one steps forward to intervene. The majority of onlookers seem too frightened to act. A few watch quietly, unsure if speaking out could lead to repercussions for them. One person, standing at the back of the crowd, mutters under their breath, "This isn't right. Why are they treating him like this?" But their voice is barely heard over the officers shouting. The longer the interaction continues, the more palpable the tension becomes. The officers continue their verbal assault, their tone growing sharper with every word. "You're not getting away with this," the shorter officer says as he inches closer to the teen. "We'll see how far you get if you don't start showing some respect." The teen's hands remain at his sides, his posture relaxed, but his mind racing. He is aware of the injustice unfolding before him, but he knows that any aggressive response could only make the situation worse. Still, it's becoming more difficult to keep his emotions in check as the officers pile on with their unprovoked insults. "What are you going to do about it, huh?" the taller officer challenges, his voice rising with frustration. "Think you're going to get out of this? I've got you now. You should have thought twice before acting like this." But the teen doesn't respond with anger. Instead, he simply sighs deeply, his calm presence still evident. He's done everything he can to explain himself, and it's clear the officers aren't interested in hearing him. It's not about the facts, it's about their power and how they want to assert it. As the situation grows more intense, the bystanders around them continue to record the exchange, but only a few whisper to each other, murmuring their discomfort. None of them seem to know what to do, paralyzed by the fear of escalating the situation further. The officer's voice is now loud enough for everyone in the vicinity to hear. "You're wasting my time, kid," he says, his patience running out. "You should be grateful I'm not doing more." At this, the teen's composure begins to crack slightly. He's had enough of the insults, but he's careful not to lose his temper. He just wants to get through this and go on with his day, but the officers are making that impossible. He looks at the crowd that's gathered, noticing the few who are now recording, but still, no one steps in to help. The officers stand tall, their postures stiff and proud, while the teen remains unmoved, his resolve holding firm despite the injustice being done. He knows that no matter what he says, their assumptions will never be shaken, so he remains silent for a moment, just breathing, watching the scene unfold. The officers continue to pile on, but the teen's calm is a stark contrast to their growing aggression. In this tense moment, it's clear that the officer's behavior is not just about this situation. It's about his assumption that he has the power to dictate who deserves respect and who doesn't, all based on preconceived biases. As the tension rises and the officers continue to berate the teen, a sudden shift occurs. The crowd has grown, some of them murmuring, others recording the scene on their phones, but no one has intervened. The officers, oblivious to the gravity of the situation, continue to press their attacks. The teen, despite the unjust treatment, holds his ground, but his patience is wearing thin. Just as the situation reaches its boiling point, the sound of footsteps approaching breaks the tension. The officers don't notice her at first, focused entirely on the teen, their voices rising in annoyance. "Kid, you should have kept your mouth shut. You think you can talk your way out of this?" The taller officer scoffs, his arms folded across his chest, smirking with arrogance. The teen, his voice steady, responds, "I'm just trying to explain myself. Why won't you listen?" Before the officer can respond with another insult, a voice calls out, "Officer, step away from my son." The officers turn, and their faces fall when they see the woman standing before them. At first, they don't recognize her, but there's something about her presence, her calm authority, her confident posture, that causes the officers to hesitate. The woman is well-dressed, her demeanor composed and strong, her gaze sharp. The teen looks up, his face filled with relief and recognition. "Mom," he says quietly. The officers glance at each other, a moment of uncertainty passing between them. The taller officer, clearly annoyed by the interruption, opens his mouth to respond but is stopped short as the woman steps forward with commanding presence. "I am the mayor of this city," she states clearly, her voice firm yet calm. "And this is my son. Now, would you care to explain why you're harassing him?" The officers freeze. The taller officer's smirk falters as the realization hits him. His gaze shifts from the woman to the teen, and his earlier arrogance begins to crumble. A faint look of panic flickers across his face as he stammers for a moment, unable to respond. You're the mayor?" the shorter officer asks, his voice uncertain. His earlier dismissive attitude has evaporated, replaced by a sense of dread. The woman nods, her calm demeanor never wavering. "Yes, I am. Now, I'd like an explanation for why you've been treating my son like this. He's done nothing wrong. I suggest you think very carefully about what happens next." The officers are left speechless, their posture shifting from arrogance to something else, fear. They look at each other, unsure how to proceed. The situation has completely flipped. For the first time in the interaction, the officers realize the mistake they've made. The woman's identity is a game changer. She's not just any person, but the mayor of the city, a position of immense power and authority. They are no longer dealing with someone they can dismiss at will. The tone shifts immediately. The taller officer, now visibly uncomfortable, steps back, his face red with embarrassment. The shorter officer clears his throat and looks down, avoiding eye contact with the mayor. The teen watches all of this unfold, his face a mix of relief and vindication. He knows that nothing will ever be the same now that his mother is here. She's not just his mother. She's the one who holds the city's power in her hands. "Do you understand the severity of your actions now?" The mayor continues, her voice unwavering. "You've disrespected my son, and I expect a full apology for your behavior. If not, we will be taking this further." The officers, now shaking with fear, nod quickly, their previous cocky demeanor completely dissolved. The realization that they've messed with the wrong person is setting in. The mayor turns to her son, her face softening for a moment. "Let's go, sweetheart." The teen nods, his expression calm, a silent understanding passing between them. Together, they walk away from the officers, leaving them standing there speechless. The officers watch as the woman and her son walk off. The situation is resolved, but the sting of their mistake will linger long after they leave the scene. The moment the mother and her son walk away from the scene, the story takes off. It's not long before the incident spreads like wildfire on social media. People are shocked, outraged, and deeply moved. The video of the police officers treating the young black teen with such disrespect quickly gains traction, with viewers sharing it far and wide. News outlets pick up the story, and soon it's a topic of national discussion. With the situation completely flipped, The tension in the air thickens. The officers, who just moments ago had been disrespecting the teen, now stand frozen in place. The woman, the mayor, steps forward, her presence commanding the room. She looks directly at the officers, her gaze unwavering, her voice carrying the weight of her position. "You've disrespected my son," she states firmly, her tone calm but undeniably authoritative. "I expect an immediate apology for the way you've treated him." The taller officer, still visibly shaken from the realization of who he's been speaking to, stammers, We didn't mean—" "Save your excuses," the mayor interrupts, her voice cutting through the officer's nervous words. "This is not about intentions. It's about respect. My son is not a criminal. He's a young man who deserves to be treated with dignity, as does every citizen, no matter their age, race, or background." She steps closer, her eyes piercing through the officers. "You have no right to treat him or anyone else this way, and you will be held accountable for your actions today." The shorter officer looks at his partner, and they both realize just how serious the situation is now. They've gone from mocking an innocent teenager to facing a powerful public official, one who is not going to let their behavior slide. "Yes, ma'am, The taller officer starts, his voice trembling. "We apologize. We really didn't." "No." The mayor cuts him off, her voice unwavering. "Not just an apology. I want a full acknowledgement of your actions and a guarantee that this kind of behavior will never happen again. I'll be reporting this incident to the proper authorities." Her words strike the officers hard, their faces now pale as the weight of their mistake settles in. The realization that they've just treated the mayor's son with such disrespect hits them with full force. The mother's authority has brought them to their knees, and they're scrambling to make things right. The teen, who had been silently watching all of this unfold, looks up at his mother with a sense of quiet pride. He's relieved, of course, but also incredibly grateful for her strength. He knows that nothing will happen again. He won't be treated like this, not in a city where his mother is in charge. "Now," the mayor continues, her voice steady and commanding, "we're leaving. You will have time to reflect on your actions. But mark my words, this is not over." The officers nod, their heads low. "We understand," the taller officer mutters, still visibly embarrassed, his earlier bravado completely gone. The situation has completely reversed in a matter of moments, and they are left to deal with the aftermath of their poor decisions. The mayor turns to her son, her face softening for a moment. "Let's go, sweetheart." The teen nods, his expression calm, a silent understanding passing between them. Together, they walk away from the officers, leaving them standing there, speechless. The officers watch as the woman and her son walk off. The situation is resolved, but the sting of their mistake will linger long after they leave the scene. The moment the mother and her son walk away from the scene, the story takes off. It's not long before the incident spreads like wildfire on social media. People are shocked, outraged, and deeply moved. The video of the police officers treating the young black teen with such disrespect quickly gains traction, with viewers sharing it far and wide. News outlets pick up the story, and soon it's a topic of national discussion. People from all walks of life are now talking about the police bias, the mistreatment of black individuals, and how the officers' behavior reflects a broader issue of systemic injustice. The more the story spreads, the more it ignites debates about racial profiling and inequality. It becomes clear that this wasn't just an isolated incident. It's a part of a bigger problem that needs urgent attention. As the story gains momentum, the mayor, with her influential position, uses her platform to speak out. With a calm but powerful voice, she calls for action. She advocates for police reform, demanding more transparency and better accountability for officers' actions. We cannot continue to turn a blind eye to the biases that shape law enforcement, she says in a public statement. We need real change that ensures every person is treated fairly, regardless of their race, background, or appearance. Her message resonates with many people. The mayor's efforts to speak out against police misconduct and demand better treatment for marginalized communities catch the attention of other local leaders, activists, and everyday citizens who have had enough of injustice. She doesn't just stop at words. She starts pushing for tangible reforms. Her position as the mayor gives her the power to challenge outdated systems and fight for the changes needed to ensure that such disrespect will not happen again. The incident also sparks a wave of conversations about racial justice. Across social media platforms, citizens begin to discuss the importance of fairness in law enforcement. Discussions about police accountability take center stage, with people from all walks of life calling for more transparency and better practices. There is a growing recognition that the issue of police brutality and how Black individuals are treated by the police cannot be ignored any longer. The story, which began with a shocking act of disrespect, has now become a movement for positive change. People from different communities rally behind the cause, voicing their support for the mayor's call for justice. Activists organize peaceful protests, demanding reforms that will ensure equal treatment for all individuals, especially those who are often overlooked or mistreated by law enforcement. The impact of the incident goes beyond just a single moment in time. It has triggered a national conversation that holds up a mirror to society, forcing people to reflect on how deeply ingrained prejudice and injustice really are. And the mayor, by using her voice and position of power, has shown that standing up for what is right can spark change. As the situation concludes, the impact of what just happened settles in. This was more than just a personal incident. It was a call for change. The story ends with a powerful lesson about respect, dignity, and the importance of standing up against injustice. The message is clear. No one, regardless of their race, background, or status, should be treated with disrespect. Whether you're a public figure or an everyday person, everyone deserves to be treated with fairness and dignity. It's a fundamental truth that we should all embrace. But the story doesn't stop there. It highlights the critical need for accountability, particularly in law enforcement. While police officers are entrusted with significant power and responsibility, it's equally important that they are held accountable for their actions. No matter how powerful or authoritative one might be, abusing that power and mistreating others should never be tolerated. This incident showed just how one officer's reckless assumptions and prejudiced behavior can cause harm, but also ignite a larger conversation about change. The mayor, standing up for her son, demonstrated how powerful one individual's actions can be when they stand against injustice. She used her position to demand respect for her son and accountability from those responsible. Her strength and resolve are a reminder that leadership is not just about holding power, but using it to ensure fairness for all, especially those who are marginalized or oppressed. The story teaches us that even small acts of injustice can trigger larger movements. It's a reminder that when people come together, advocate for what's right, and push for accountability, we create ripples of change. A society where fairness, equality, and justice are not optional, but essential. Through this story, we are reminded of the value of standing up for what is right. Whether you're in a position of power or not, speaking out against injustice is vital. In this case, one person's courage led to a wider call for police reform, racial justice, and better treatment of marginalized communities. We all have a role to play in creating a more just society.